I want to talk about animal rights versus welfare.
There are like 3 stages of animal welfare.
Right.
There's minimal welfare, poor welfare, higher welfare. Minimal welfare are the standards that are established. The government says, okay, this is at least this much welfare needs to be given. For battery cages, for example, so a hen for its entire life gets to live in an A4 sachet. That's your minimal welfare. The reality is poor welfare. Big farmers would put in 6 or
probably.
8. 40 wouldn't fit,
Yeah.
but they could probably do
Yeah,
that
if
if
they could
would.
have, they would, yeah.
But they would put as many as, and so these birds can't even spread their wings, and they're sitting on those wired meshes, they're pooping one on top of the other, they can't even turn around, and that's their life, and they're just laying eggs, and they're fed from one end, and they're laying eggs from the other. 2 years later, removed and culled. Higher welfare, which is things like cage-free eggs, for example, or free-range eggs, or pasture-fed meat, or whatever. On paper, it makes you think that, oh, those animals lived really good lives and they're freely running around in farms. But the definition of free range is just a larger space available. So they're not in cages, but they're still crowded. Instead of 100 birds, maybe 80 birds in that space. So a little more space per bird. Cage-free doesn't mean cruelty-free. Because at the end of life, at the end of those 20 years, that bird is still going to break its legs because of osteoporosis, stop laying eggs, and they'll still be culled. The male chicks are still getting killed. Welfare, whether it's poor or minimal or high, it still doesn't mean cruelty-free. That's something that we need to understand. If you cannot give it up despite understanding all of this, then maybe go for higher welfare products. Maybe that still at least ensures that miserable lives that they live, at least they're living slightly less miserable lives. But animal rights pretty much says that animals have an entity of their own. They've not been made for us. Because that's the belief that we have, not so much for dogs and cats, but for farmed animals, कि वो तो खाने के लिए बने हैं. क्यों? किसने बोला खाने के लिए? वैसे तो कुत्ते भी खाने के लिए बने हैं कुछ देशों में. अपने देशों में कई जगहों पे, you know, cats and dogs are eaten. So those people think in the same way. So culturally, it's just a way to question your beliefs, your culture, and see sense in reason. So animal rights is basically just not using any animal product. Maybe you can have a system where you don't torture your animals and you still kind of get that milk. But even then, mathematically, it's impossible because it keeps exponentially multiplying. How many cows can you keep, you know? So you end up selling it. The person who's buying it, what is he going to do with it?
To the butchers eventually.
Absolutely. There's no humane and ethical way of using an animal commercially in the scale that we're looking at. So that's what people need to see. As long as there is an alternative available that's cruelty-free or less cruel, which doesn't involve the exploitation of animals, and because they're sentient beings, they feel pain, we should just stay away from animal products. In any form, that's basically what animal rights talks about, that animals have their right to exist, to coexist with us on the planet, and we should just do as little harm as possible.